changes to tag application process. Chief of Operations, Bob Wayne.
Good morning. For the record, Bob Boyne, Chief of the Operations Division. This is an information item. Actually, there's two components to it, and we'll walk through them. Monty's presentation, I thought, was a good transition to this discussion. You have information papers, but what I thought I would do is just walk through and address some highlights in here. First one, obviously, is a proposal that we have. We've been anticipating this discussion for some time to bring the big game tag application process to an online-only process. And depending on the discussions of today and where you want to go, we're anticipating that in December, for the meeting in Reno, we'll be bringing an action item back to the commission. So let me just walk through this briefly. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to go through it. You know, we conduct a number of draws. Some are online only already right now, and others are a combination of paper and online. And the ones that we're really focusing on here are the big game tag applications. And a good portion of what's addressed in this paper is going to deal with the main draw. So you'll see a lot of numbers in here, and those are primarily the main draw. And in Table 1, you know, we've highlighted those big game applications draws in bold there, so you can see that. And just want to remind you, in a main draw, that you know, we're already doing some stuff online only in that process. That's Bear and Silver State and Dream Tag. Table 2 looks at the number and percentages of applicants and their application method. And Monty kind of touched on this. Over time, this has obviously changed. We're seeing more and more people go online only. And for 2012, you know, those that we're really kind of looking at are the paper-only applicants, and that's almost 2,300 out of the 57,000. So we're looking at right now about 96% of our applicants are doing it, doing some type of application, whether it's all of them or some of them, through the online process. And not to be confused with applications, because I think the application count online was about 97%. So, Table 3, Monty touched on this, but the reason why we wanted to have this in here, and another reason why Monty and Don have been tracking this for a while, is over the years we've heard concerns from folks that you know, rural areas are having, you know, they have difficulty either access to a computer or internet service infrastructure, that sort of thing, and we've kind of touched on it here. But so that just gives you a view of the range there. Anywhere from 89% are doing it online for Mineral County to almost 98% in Elko. And Mineral County, like Esmeralda, has got smaller numbers, so it doesn't take much to change that percentage based on, you know, a small handful of folks who transition from paper only to going online. Table 4, kind of a different slice of the pie. That just gives you a sense of all the paper applicants over the years, what their bonus points looks like. So, I mean, it clearly indicates that, you know, these folks have a vested interest in continuing with the process. And so we're hoping that if we go online only, that we won't lose many of these, and we'll talk about that in a second. We reached out to some other states as well. At the time we did this paper, we had heard from 9 states, and 6 of them are online only or about to go online. You can see Oklahoma is going online this next year. And let me transition to Utah. Clearly you know that Systems Consultant supports Utah in their big game application process, so we kind of dug into this a little more. So Table 6 addresses the Utah big game applicants and their application count. They went online only in 2008. And if you just look at the numbers there, you see a decline. But there's a couple of variables that occurred at that time that kind of complicated all of this. As far as that decline, it's a 3.5% decline in applicants in 2008. But at the same time, that's when Utah introduced a change in their application fee, plus they also introduced a requirement to purchase a license in order to apply. So the example given there, if you look at non-resident count, that changed their dollar commitment from a few bucks up to $75. So consequently, there was a drop-off, but over the remaining years, based on certainly their vesting in the process, a high percentage of those folks came back to the Utah draw process, and we anticipate that a good chunk, a high majority of Nevada's paper-only applicants would come back to this as well. We're not going to know that until time goes on, but I think we feel pretty confident with that. So one of the things we talked about doing, and we held off till we got done with this discussion here, is not only are we looking at the 2,300 paper-only applicants for 2012, but we kind of broadened that. We went back over a couple of years and looked, and it's almost 4,000 over the last couple of years that is paper-only. And our initial thought was, and it would be at a cost, obviously, is we could reach out with a survey to every one of these and see what kind of feedback we get. But that'll be predicated on where this group wants to go. Like I said, there'll be a cost. And we'd certainly, I think, have enough time to do such a survey and to be able to report on that in December. I think if you've been around for a while and you've heard this conversation, you know that there's going to be some benefits for our applicants. Certainly, we don't reach out and grab all their fees, like we do with the paper applicants to begin with. So that would be a benefit. They also have the option to purchase a license online only if they're successful. So that's certainly a benefit. You get a dose of confidence when you go online, and you get almost instantaneously an email response giving you a confirmation. You don't get that with a paper application unless, of course, you are willing to fork out some money maybe for FedEx. And I mentioned before, going online, then everybody's going to have an opportunity for a couple of select tags, Bear Tag, Silver State, and Dream Tag. And a couple of years ago, we introduced the ability to amend applications, and it's pretty simple through the online process to amend an application. You also have the ability through the online process to, after the close of the deadline, you could come back and submit, if you want, a bonus point only application for the following 7 days. And that provides a great relief to a lot of these folks that would otherwise, go empty-handed. A couple of years ago, we had a gentleman who missed the tag deadline, and come to find out, he was a prior Southern Nevada legislator. He had 11 bonus points toward Mount Goat. He did not apply the year before, and we had no relief for him. He lost those points, and there would have been a perfect opportunity, had we had that in place at the time. Monty touched on this as well. Table 7 just addresses the errors, and those are almost exclusively paper errors. I mean, that will go away if we go online only. And Table 8 identifies those that if we weren't able to resolve the error, ultimately there are a number of people rejected, and you can see in Table 8 that 2012 there are 111 applicants that were rejected. Another thing that we'll do is change the application deadline. It's right now 5 o'clock. That's traditionally been set up to handle mail delivery. If we go online only, we'll have the opportunity to extend that. I think the desired extension time is 11 o'clock. And it's just one more opportunity to extend that for those procrastinators. That would be painless to do that. Benefits to us, it's a little more transparent, but, not transparent. Because we're at 96% right now, we've pretty much recognized all the savings. But there's some administrative things that we'll be able to do. We'll be able to reduce mailing costs. We'll pretty much eliminate bounced checks. We have a refund process that we use with the Treasurer's Office that would pretty much go away. That last table just addresses a number of refunds that we've had to work, and most recently 2012, it was almost 1,600 refunds that have had to be processed. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you, and we can get into the discussion however you'd like.
Okay, any discussion? Commissioner Rain.
Yeah, I got a question that came, before you'd come up with the deal for the first few applicants, first few thousand applicants in for a drawing, to hopefully resolve some of the peak towards the end of the application process. How did that work? Or is you can continue, or?
Yeah, it appears it did. The first year it wasn't publicized, so it had no impact. The second year it was publicized, and this year being the second year of it, and we actually hit the bigger numbers sooner, if you will. And then we thought, wow, everything's going great, because we're about 15% over last year, and we thought we were going to have a huge increase. And it turned out that it tapered off towards the end, and so that was a good thing. Was it as dramatic as we liked? No. One of the benefits that Bob mentioned of moving the deadline to 11 o'clock at night has a big impact, because we see a huge number of people trying to get in by 5 o'clock, and they're trying to call us, and just the dark and the night causes people not to procrastinate. They'll procrastinate to the last day and get in at 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock at night, but we don't have a big bulge at 11 o'clock at night in Utah, for example. We see more people at 11 o'clock on the last day in Utah than we do on any other day, but we don't see the kind of numbers we see at 5 o'clock, say, or at 7 o'clock at night. So that will also help us with the peak on that last day.
Okay, so that was somewhat successful, good enough to be continued.
Yep.
And that's important. It's part of the same process. I'm a little worried about we're going to lose some people, and clearly we will lose some people. But what gains are we going to make monetarily by doing this? And that's one thing I haven't seen the numbers on. I mean, if it's going to cost us 1 penny on an application to keep going with paper, well, let's do it. If it's costing us what are we saving by doing this? We saving $10, $2, $2 million. I don't have a number. We ought to have it before we get there.
Well, I don't have a number for you today. There certainly are some savings. Most of them, as Bob said, have been realized. A big savings that we had was in not mailing out the full application to everyone. We were only mailing to the people who have the history of paper apps in the last couple of years. But that's largely been realized, because we're down to where 4% of the clients are on paper now in getting those paper apps. The process of creating the paper app is eliminated. The process, which I can't speak to the cost of, but the process that the agency goes through for refunds to send out 1,600 checks through the state treasurer's office. We create an electronic file, but they have to administer that process. I have no clue as to how they're charged for that. That would have to be an agency.
If there's an estimate of that, I mean, this isn't the regulation, we're not passing any rules right now, but we should at least have an estimate of most of those things. I mean, I don't know that anybody here needs the last penny, but we need it's between this and this. That would be reasonable, cover our fiduciary duties in that. And as far as the rest, I know the commission has hashed around this before, and numbers came up, well, if it drops below 3% of applicants, we should do it 5%. We never come up with a number. If number 5 was thrown out, number 3 was thrown out, stuff around that general ballpark, well, we are kind of we're under the 5, we're not to the 3. We're in those general ballpark. How much money is it going to save us? That would be a lot of determining factor. Thank you.
Commissioner Drew.
The concern I have, and it's not so much losing existing clients, but if you look at table 4, even just under antlered mule deer, I mean, you're looking at 1,100 0-point applicants using the paper system, and then it drops to 500, and then it drops to 200. So it seems like on the first year, and the first year of clients that we're recruiting, for whatever reason, have more comfort with the paper. I think that's maybe because you can see it, maybe they don't know about the online. Maybe you could speak to that, but I'll tell you what, with those numbers, that scares me, because going into the future, we need as many first-time clients as possible. So for me to support this down the road, I need to understand why that is, and if we could come up with a mitigation strategy so we aren't losing those people, because we are not in a position where we want to be losing first-year clients.
And I think that's a good question. The problem is first-year clients, why did they come to us, or why did they do it? A lot of first-year clients, and we should look at this, are in parties. And it could be that that's why that we're seeing them on paper. We do see people who are on paper are more likely to be in a party than not. But the problem with losing those clients, or saying we'll lose those clients, I'll point out that in Utah, the first year after when we came back, 50% of the people who were paper only up to that point went ahead and applied. So whether they're first year or whatever, they went ahead and applied. So I don't think you're going to lose a lot of people. I think that it's just a matter of they go where they can, and if they can do it on online and can't do it on paper, there's a percentage of them that absolutely will. They'll just be driven to it. I'm not sure how we survey them. It's easy to survey the folks that we have. It's not easy to survey the folks we don't have. That's the problem. And particularly because the option for surveying the folks we don't have would probably be to do it on the web, and if they're not inclined to apply on the web, then that sort of begs the question.
And I guess what I'm saying in making this point is maybe we can talk with Teresa and her folks and maybe come up with some sort of mitigation strategy. So if we do go to a web only, maybe there's a hard copy web, like a worksheet that they can print out in a PDF or something, so the people who are applying the first time can physically see it on paper type thing.
I will point out the obvious too, and that having no bonus points doesn't mean that you're a first-time applicant. Because
that is true, but you
if
and I
you
both
drew, or if
know
you-
that
yeah,
the
if-
odds are most of those people are first-time applicants.
If you drew before, you're out in your bonus points, or if you didn't buy a license, you don't have bonus points. So. And we could get a number for you on that as well if you're interested for the next meeting. We could say how many of these people have ever applied before, even though they have no bonus points.
And that would be good to have. But again, I think working with Teresa's folks and trying to figure out what's going on there and having some sort of mitigation thought so we don't lose a big chunk of what I believe is probably first-time applicants. I could be way wrong on that, but I just have a hunch.
Commissioner Macbeth?
Could you speak to the issue of what type of access these people who have not been putting in online applications have to computers? I guess I'm assuming that a lot of these folks don't have computers. I don't know if that's necessarily a correct assumption, but would, and I know in Clark and Washoe, I would assume that they would have access to computers in public libraries. Is that the same in rural counties as well?
This Ken Mayer for the record. I think so. We also provide that at our offices, so someone can walk in and use a computer at our office. So we have gone out of our way to try to make that. Now, we didn't get much play because I think most people have a way to get on their computer. So we just need to figure out when we just need to move on, say it's going to be, and then those people, I'm not too worried that they're going to say, oh, I'm not going to apply because I have to do it online. But
I worry about that comment, because I grew up in a lot of places that kids rode 70 miles one way to get to school. And there's no way that they have internet access. And those are the clients that live out my grant I worry about. I'm not worried about the people that live in Reno and Carson and Las Vegas. I'm worried about the Fish Lake Valley guys, the Stone Cabin Valley guys, the guys up around Pete's area. You get an older gentleman, it's 60 miles to town. That's a burden. And I just don't like putting burden. I mean, We do live in a modern age, but we still have a lot of people that live in very rural areas. It's Nevada. And that's my biggest heartburn with this, and always has been. If it's a 20-year-old guy that lives in Reno, I have no heartburn with that. If it's a 70-year-old guy that lives out by Grant, I've got a lot of heartburn with that. And that's my honest opinion on it. Commissioner Young.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, and I think that the results of this survey that they're going to do, I don't think we can do a heck of a lot till we get those results, and hopefully we get a good return on those. But specifically, I'd like to ask those types of questions. Will you stop applying if we go to online only? What, get into the, the nitty-gritty as to why they're not using it. I think without that information, I think this conversation is...
I apologize, Mr. Wallace.
That's all right.
Commissioner Wallace, I skipped right over you.
I can shed a little light on that. I mean, just in my own community, if you look at the records here, we had 4 people last year that did it on paper. And to be quite honest with you, those 4 people, I probably printed the application for them because it didn't come in the mail to them for some reason or another, and the local market didn't have any paper applications. But at the same time, 2 of those people, we do have a public library that has access to the internet and just chose not to use the internet to do it. And at the same time, I had 2 of them that actually have internet access, but just the whole idea of the computer was out there and foreign. I mean, they had the computer, they had the internet access, and I went to a couple of their houses and actually helped them go through and do some online. That's probably why you're seeing a couple of them where it dropped off one year, because I had them do it, but then now I see it where it looks like they probably went ahead and went back to the paper. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I can check into that a little bit, but in my rural community, I mean, we still have dial-up, so you're down to the point of people that just don't have a computer. Probably those 4 people just don't have a computer. So I mean, you're gonna lose a few to that, and I agree with Commissioner Rob. I mean, I do have problems with that because I mean, one of the guys was just like, why, how come this is this way? And it's just the sign of the times. But there are going to be a few that we probably just drop off of the map because they just refuse to use the options that are even available, even in my rural community. I'm sure there's more areas that are more rural than I am, but just in my area, that's kind of where we're at and what I've seen.
We've seen some people, and I've talked to them on the phone, who've said, I have a computer, I use it to look at the NDOW website, I print out things, but I am not going to provide my credit card and my social security number over the internet, period. End of story. And so I presume they don't renew their DMV sticker that way, that they do it by mail, and that they don't, do a host of other things that most people are doing now. And we will lose those people if they stay with that. If it becomes a choice and they have to think about it and decide it's worthwhile, maybe we won't lose all of them, but we will lose some of those people. And I think we were hoping that in the survey we could ask a bunch of questions. Is it an issue of having a computer? Is it an issue of having a credit card? When this first happened in Utah, they were very concerned about the credit card issue. And obviously you can go to Walmart and buy a debit card and put it through, even though you're bankrupt. I mean, you don't have to qualify for a credit card to be able to use a credit card online, or a debit card, I should say, online. So there are workarounds for those issues, but if somebody is absolutely concerned about security of their information, if they just don't trust the great cloud out there, then that...
I mean, I guess in answer to that, you're not necessarily using your social security number to access it. You're using through your sportsman's ID number, which if they don't think they're using their social security number, it's still within your database, regardless of whether they do it with paper or not. Am I wrong
Well,
on
personally, if I were given the choice of putting my social security number and credit card on the internet or sending it on paper where it was keyed, I absolutely would pick the former over the latter. I mean, we've worked in 3 states besides Nevada, outside of Nevada, where prisoners were keying applications that included social security numbers and credit cards. And there's absolutely no way I would want that to happen with my information. And yet, and we don't use that. We key with our own operators when we key paper. But the belief that you're somehow safe because it's on paper, I'd rather trust it that I did it myself and did it through the internet through a secure system than a human being saw my information.
Commissioner McNish.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I was sitting here, I understand the concerns. I certainly I'm intrigued by it. I think that there's I mean, you know, when this whole thing started the first year, we were hoping for 70% or something, and I think 74 went online right after Utah had gone to the online system, and it's climbed to 96 by itself. Probably a lot out of conveniences. My father-in-law is one of those 4%ers, and I asked him last night, thanks by the way for tolerating me going back and forth to Reno, it was very worth it to me, thank you. But I asked him, I said, hey, if this thing was to go online, what's the rub? And it was the convenience fee. He's not going to pay $1 or $2 for anything, you know, and but the first thing he'd do is give you $500 to go do something. But when I told him that I had probably well worth significantly more value in tools that I had borrowed from him in my garage that he hadn't asked back yet, I think kind of put it in perspective. And he said, yeah, he said, if it went online, I'd do it. You know, I said, it's not that big a deal. And I can guarantee he's he's a 4%er. That's a pretty good holdout at this point. From the technology standpoint, I think our biggest challenge is going to be those people that want to participate. They're going to find a way. They're going to call Grant. They're going to call you, Mike. They're going to call somebody. They're going to do something. I think our biggest challenge is going to be to figure out how to do this so that people aren't doing it on a computer. They're doing it on one of their handheld devices, because that's the generation that's there. It's not the computer stuff. The computer stuff's disappearing too. Let's face it. If you can't do it on your handheld device, it's an inconvenience.
It's called a phone, Dave. I know you don't have one.
I don't have one. I do today, and it's turned off. But the whole point is that my 11-year-old is these handheld devices and this stuff is so natural for them. It's not even funny. You know, you plug things into ports and you access stuff. I mean, to them it's just natural, you know. And I could give him a phone, which he does not have, and he can operate just like that. He just gets it. And I think that's what you're dealing with is going to be more of a function of how do we facilitate that, because that's going to be coming sooner than later. And so I think you know, the people that want to participate, you know, it'd be unfortunate to lose, but at the same time, I think you got a lot more to gain with the folks that are coming in. The group that you're talking about, Jeremy, that is an interesting question. I'd be curious to see what is behind that. I don't think going to paper is gonna hurt that crowd. They're the ones that are looking at this saying, God, this thing's archaic, you know, like we did with the paper applications to get us to where we're at. You know, wish I could do this on my on my iPhone or whatever, you know. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Commissioner Wallace.
One more thing, something that Commissioner McNish just brought to mind. Actually, some of those 0 points and first-time paper-only people, I don't know if you've got that broke down into non-residents, because I ran into this. One of my friends wanted to apply with me and wanted me to do the application for them, but they're a non-resident. And the hunter safety issue, he couldn't do it online the first time. That was had to be at an office, or had to be, I didn't even know can you do it by paper the first time